You're listening to the Craft Messages That Matter podcast. I'm your host, Theo Capodistrius. Grab a coffee, sit back, and enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Craft Messages That Matter podcast. So today I wanted to talk about this idea of vulnerability. I've had a few changes in life, nothing major, but a few things where I stopped and had a little think and reflect about what was going on and what's changed and what's different. So I reflected on my year. And some of the things that changed this year for me was that I'd made a few really important friendships. Male friendships can be particularly interesting and sometimes are a hard one to move beyond just that surface level stuff. But the friendships I've made recently had definitely become a bit stronger and a bit more significant than those ordinary acquaintances. And the thing that made it different is this idea of being really vulnerable with each other. Being able to share when you're not okay or needed some support or feeling uncomfortable or feeling stressed about something. Just actually being able to say when you weren't feeling great. Being able to sit down with someone and have a drink and dig a little deeper about who you are and what's going on, and knowing you can trust someone without judgment has been a really big thing for me. And I think everyone involved as well, and for everyone, I should say. When we communicate with others, whether it's just a one-on-one conversation with a pal, speaking on a stage, really showing who we are, bearing a little bit of that authenticity can allow us to connect in a way that's going to be a bit different with others. And I know that these friendships have moved pretty quickly and we became really good friends because we were open, honest, and vulnerable. So imagine if that's something that we could do and implement in a work context or on a stage. Something I learned about myself through this process is that I'm probably a little more empathetic than I realized. And this in itself has been a really big discovery. And knowing that I can be there to support someone else and to understand their pain is really important. Imagine if we could do this in all environments and even on a stage when we present it to other people. Imagine if we could express ourselves and show some of this vulnerability to really be authentic to people on stage. Brené Brown is one of the leading authorities in this space. At my previous work, we were tasked with reading the book Dare to Lead, and I loved that her research helps to dispel the myth that vulnerability is weak and, in truth, the most accurate measure of courage. So in an interview with Forbes, Brené said the following, and here's a little quote. "The difficult thing is that vulnerability is the first thing I look for in you and the last thing I'm willing to show you. In you, it's courage and daring. In me, it's weakness." This is where shame comes into play. Vulnerability is about showing up and being seen. It's tough to do that when we're terrified about what people might see or think. When we're fueled by the fear of what other people think, or that gremlin that's constantly whispering, "You're not good enough," in our ears, it's tough to show up. We end up hustling for our worthiness rather than standing in it. When we've attached our self-worth to what we produce or earn, being real gets dicey. The good news is that I think people are tired of the hustle. They're tired of doing it and they're tired of watching it. We're hungry for people who have courage to say, "I need help," or "I own that mistake," or "I'm not willing to define success simply by my title or income any longer." When we communicate with others, this is an important opportunity for us to build a connection. Such a great quote. In my methodology for communication, the final C I refer to is this idea of connection. In the workplace, if we're able to connect on a slightly deeper level with our colleagues, clients, and teammates, we're able to be ourselves. We can be the authentic people we want to be, and we can feel like we're able to be safe. We're in a safe and comfortable environment. And I'm not saying the workplace is where we should be unleashing our innermost traumas, but being able to show some vulnerabilities with those closest to you, or just being realistic about things that are going on and that are happening in your life, and being able to have an honest discussion could be really pivotal to your happiness and your relationships with those that you work with. When we talk, or when I talk about connection, I talk about trust. I know that those mates who I've shared, trust with, trust me as well. Building on this idea of vulnerability means that the more we give with others, the more likely that it'll lead to a trusted and trusting relationship where others need and want to listen to you. I think it's a journey, and vulnerability isn't the answer to everything, but it's an interesting thing for me to reflect on recently and how it's impacted my life in the past few months, at least anyway. So I hope this has given you something to think about. And if you like this episode, please follow or subscribe and give it a rating. Give it a 5 out of 5. We love that, particularly as I'm in the early stages of the pod. To learn more about what I do as a speaker, a trainer, an MC, and a public speaking, communications and presentation coach, head to my website, www.theocap.com.au. Follow the Craft Messages That Matter Instagram page at CMTM_podcast. And of course, follow my personal Instagram page at TheoCap88.